Good evening, ladies, gentlefers, and my lovely NBs. We are here live in Las Vegas for the 2023 FBA Draft. My name is Marcus Baylor, and to my right is Ryan Eastman. How are you doing, dude?
Doing excellent, Marcus. We're here back in Vegas for yet another draft. It's been, I think, number 9 now coming up for me. Feels like it. It's been a while, but we have a wonderful night ahead of us. And for the 24 players that will be selected tonight, I'm sure they are on edge of these available players. Who will go tonight? What order? What team will they end up on? This is the first step of their true FBA journey. Any words before we get started?
Well, the only thing I have to say is that it's another exciting time for a lot of these young players to actually get an experience and have their moment here getting picked in the FBA because it's a very huge step. It's such an exciting step for these players, and there's so many people from different backgrounds coming in from different walks of life to have a chance to follow their dreams here. And I'm excited to see how each and every one of them be, where each and every one of these players be as the night goes on.
Yep, and I see our commissioner heading to the stage, so let's cut down and get the opening address from him.
Good evening, draft prospects, family and friends, FBA team staff, players, and administrators, as well as to all of those watching at home. My name is Hugo Livingston III, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all to the 2023 Furry Basketball Association Draft. The Furry Basketball Association has had a long-standing tradition of helping those develop up-and-coming talented athletes into upstanding young basketball players. We are excited to see what this new draft class has to offer to the league. Before we begin, I would like to tell you a story. Once there was a bicycle, and that bicycle was extremely important because when that bicycle All right, friends. Hi, it's Rookie. I just wanted to go over how the draft is going to happen and what the proceedings are for tonight. So as of about 3 minutes ago, the draft has gone live. If in that time you have contacted myself, Faded, or Kingsley, I promise you we have not received that email. You must DM me directly if you want to contact any of us. If you have any last minute trades that occur before or during the draft and you haven't been notified that you've received it, please direct message me. Also, if you have any new deals in the works, direct message me. When it's your pick, when it's your turn to pick your player, direct message me. Are you sensing a pattern here? Basically, I'm going to be your point of contact for tonight's draft day picks and shenanigans as we get started. Once it is your turn on the clock, if I don't hear from you, I will poke you directly after 2 minutes have passed. If after 4 minutes we still don't have a response, I'm going to look at your selected draft priority sheet. If you haven't put one in, or everyone on that sheet has been selected, we will select the next highest ranked individual on the board. Lastly, if a trade occurs which affects the current draft pick, we will reset the clock for the current new team. Got it? Great. So now we're going to return to your regularly scheduled draft, already in progress. That's how I became the sole heir to the Chattanooga Choo-Choo, and how the railroad industry was changed forever. I hope that story was awe-inspiring. And with that, Hawaii is on the clock, and Las Vegas is on deck. Let us start the 2023 FBA Draft.
Marcus, wake up.
Yeah, I'm awake.
No, I saw
Well,
that.
no, look. All right, it's been. How long was that? Like what? 20 minutes?
It felt like it. I mean, it's
I mean,
been a long day.
someone should time him.
No, let's not. Anyways, we have Hawaii on the clock. Does Hawaii even have a team still in? Because I really don't feel like they do.
I think they don't. I'm pretty sure by the time the season has ended, they basically just said, "All right, great job, everybody get out," because like there really isn't. Pretty much, we have a wide open slate when it comes to the Hawaii Kahunas. They have completely made a lot of massive moves, massive changes, and we're gonna see a whole new look for the Kahunas here. And honestly, it could be anybody for the first overall pick. It could easily be somebody that like Francois, who had a fantastic showing here at the Combine Games. Could possibly be number one. There's just so many options here because of the fact that they don't really have anybody that's a staple on Hawaii right now. Now, of course, they do have Eric Toivonen that they traded for a long time face of the franchise, Scooty Barrett. So that really just shows how willing the Kahuna's ready to go ahead and start this next chapter.
Yeah, like I said, there's so many. I don't want to say quote unquote on the clock, but there's so many options they could go with here. Sorry, I'm getting messages possibly. Anyways, uh, back on track. They could literally they could throw a dart at any position, and they would technically need it right now, and there would be no issue with the selection they make here.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, I don't think any choice that they make would be wrong here unless they like go out of their way and pick somebody that's not a part of the top 24 to be the number one pick. Like that would be that would be a conversation to be had.
Okay, when I said a dart, I mean a dart at a position, not a dart at a player. Because
Hey,
God help me.
we have had those situations happen before where a player that wasn't really in the conversation for top 24 end up being a part of that top 10 in the past. So it's not something that would be surprising to me, but I think it'd be very surprising if that would happen with the first overall pick.
Yeah, I mean, we saw some reaches last year, though. Number one driving all the way down to pick up, Alaska selected Devin Dukes, who
Hmm.
wasn't even, I think, the top rated center of that class at the moment, but they were willing to reach down, and Hawaii needing to rebuild, needing to build a new unit, they're going to go with the person they want, not necessarily the best available.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can imagine that this pick would have to be the face of the franchise, the one who's going to essentially get the torch after Scooney had decided to let it go from the Kahunas. So there's so many things that could be riding on this and they decide to do here, especially with some of the rumors that have been going around with what Hawaii wants to do in free agency as well.
Yeah, and speaking of, I see the commissioner heading to the stage. It looks like the pick is in.
For the very first pick of the 2023 FBA Draft, the Hawaii Kahunas have selected Lorenzo Angelo Amato, guard forward cheetah from Angulès University de Paris. Congratulations to you, Lorenzo, on being the first pick of the 2023 FBA Draft. I shall return for the next pick when the Las Vegas Wildcats have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Well, they went guard forward, number one overall. Not too surprising in the sense that they had Eric Toivonen, like you said. They didn't have to reach for the best center available. They chose to go with a more dynamic player, bring them in and lead the team in the the backcourt rather than the front court.
Yep, number one overall in the top 24 ranking. So it's not a surprise here, seeing that Lorenzo gets to get picked, be the very first pick within it, because like I said, it's a new era for Hawaii, and being able to get the best player available is off to a great start no matter how you look at it.
Yeah, like I said, they have a lot of options now going forward with their free agency. Who are they going to target? What kind of veteran presence are they going to try and bring in to help guide the young talent. A lot of options, and Hawaii has a lot of. I can't even give you an estimation of how Hawaii is going to perform next year, just because there's so many questions still left. But at least it looks like they've solved one of their starting spots here by drafting Lorenzo.
Yeah, for sure. I think that at the end of the day, it's going to be interesting if Hawaii is going to take some time actually to build it piece by piece as the years goes on, or if they're going to go ahead and try and go all in and go right back into playoff contention, depending on who they get. But no matter what the situation is, I do think Amato is a very good pick here, especially with having an interesting pairing with Eric Toivonen. So it's going to be a wait and see and how well that these players mesh together as we start figuring out what this new look Hawaii Kahuna's team is going to look like.
Yes, and now looking at the next team on the clock, the Las Vegas Wildcards, a team that we did not really expect to be here. They traded one of the bigger trades of this last offseason, trading for the second overall pick, giving up Tyrone Gale. And maybe that leads us to see where they might be thinking for this position if they're now needing to replace their small forward.
Yeah, it's gonna be certainly interesting. Like Las Vegas is in a pretty unique spot. I mean, after making such a interesting trade here, all the way up to number 2, as you said, getting deciding to move on from Tyrone Gill, sending him off to Queens. Now for Vegas, they could really go just about anywhere. Like obviously, the big hole here is trying to fill Tyrone Gill with forward, but there's also the possibility of looking into the big furs as well, because as we said, there are plenty of centers in this draft. Like, this is the richest draft class when it comes to center depth in a very long time. So they could actually look for there as a possible option too.
Yeah, and I mean, that's obviously something they need help with. They are looking for bringing in, they need to bring back their 2 starters, or they need to find someone in free agency. With Ivy and Nikolai both in free agency,
Hmm.
unless they are looking here at the draft, they could find themselves a center at this position. And I don't want to say be cheap, but by being able to draft number 2, a $5 million contract is a lot cheaper than the going rate of most starting centers in the FBA.
Yeah, for sure. Especially with how some players are actually getting probably around 15 or 16 million to be one of the top bigs um in in free agency of some of the offers that I've been hearing. It's not going to be much of a surprise if they decided, you know what, it might be a bit too rich, and we're okay with trying to get some of these young bigs that we have. And there's a variety of them as well. But of course, it's going to be depending on whether or not how pressing they are trying to replace Tyrone Gale within the draft.
Yeah, and at the same time, you have to imagine looking at the board available, you know, Linwood and Carter, both possible options to fill that small forward spot. And, looking at the top centers, you have Angel, Brandon, and Oakland. All any of those 3, honestly, the only one we know they're not picking, and if they do pick them, I promised I was not going to rage this year. But you owe me a whiskey sour if they do end up picking Francois here with the number 2
Wait,
overall pick.
when did I agree to a bet with you on this?
It's not a bet. It is a compensation for
It's
my
a
sanity.
compensation.
My
Oh,
sanity
oh,
here, Marcus.
okay, all
You
right,
don't
all
understand. If
right.
they pick Francois here with the number 2 overall pick, I need a drink to make it through the rest of the night.
Okay. I mean, we'll have to wait and see if that's going to be the case. I mean, having the he Francois is the top player on the board right now, considering the top 24 rankings. We'll see. We'll see if they decide to do that. But
Okay.
eh, eh, we got
Well,
to see how it goes.
speaking of, the pick is in. Let's head down to the commissioner.
For the second pick of the 2023 FBA Draft, Las Vegas Wildcards have selected Brandon Baylor, a big fur polar bear from Black Tundra University. Congratulations to you, Brandon, on being the second pick of the 2022 FBA Draft. I will return for the next pick when the Williamsburg Minutemen have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Okay, maybe the drinks are
Wow.
on me tonight.
Um. Yeah, I guess so. You start things off. You start things off.
Well, I mean, I talked about, this was an area they could go. This does bring into question what they're going to target in free agency to bring the gap that Tyrone Gale left. Going big makes sense, especially if they're not sure they can afford to bring back both Nikolai and Ivy Robbins. So I agree with it. There were three really great centers here at the top. I'm a little surprised they went with the polar bear to go to the desert.
yeah,
Just,
yeah.
I mean,
uh,
that's
uh,
that's gonna be interesting. Hopefully he'll have a
yeah.
lot of money for the AC bills he's gonna need to
Yeah.
crank up.
I've talked with him because like I can see his happy little butt with his freaking weird pineapple get up that he's got going on. But the thing with it that makes it very interesting is the fact that like Brandon's a go getter, so I'm sure this is definitely going to make him probably more happier than what he needs to be. But it's going to be an interesting spot for him. I'm very excited to see how he plays with Vegas. And what can I say? It's going to be an interesting time for uh, the wild card to be making this pick.
Yeah, well, we're moving on now to Williamsburg, a team that had a high pick last year as well, and they picked a center back then.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder what they're thinking here. Their aging front court, back court in Vera Latiera and Crystal Davis. You have to almost imagine this might be where we see Francois go.
Yeah,
Or do
it's
you
a strong.
see something else, like another big possibly getting picked up here?
I can understand seeing the possibility of Francois coming off on this pick, mainly because of the fact that, as you said, uh, Vera Letiera is not getting any younger. She's going to be on her final year of her contract here, and I can't imagine that she's going to have that big of a contract like she has had in years past if they do decide to bring her back. Uh, so having somebody to pair with Michaela Marley could be a wise decision as well. And if they do decide to bring her back, it could be a possibility of going for that small forward position as well, considering that Renee is not getting any younger and she's also going to be in free agency.
That she is, and I'm actually leaning here Linwood personally. I'm thinking Linwood might
Mm.
be a bit of a best of both worlds scenario where they can draft her to play small forward, and if they do decide to bring Renee back, she could eventually evolve into the shooting guard role, as I imagine Marley will eventually take over at point guard, unless they do take Francois. If Francois goes off the board, I think he's the future point guard. If they
Mhm.
go with Linwood, I think Marley's the potential future point guard for this team. Um, and I mean, I'm not going to discount Angel could even come off the board if they want to go really big. They took Marshall last year. They don't need to take a center, but they very well
Yeah.
could just because Angel is there on the board.
Yep. And there's also the fact that Ramsey could possibly be the I guess the next frog up to
She could
possibly
be.
fill in the pause of Renee if they decide to move on from Renee entirely. And Ramsey, in her own right, has done a very fantastic job of within the combine games. She has shown her offensive prowess. So I wouldn't be surprised if Williamsburg go for there because they do need to get younger uh, as a whole, in my opinion.
Hmm.
So being able to rely on that youth and really kind of give the spark that the Minutemen desperately needs is something that they can do.
Now, interesting thing here. This draft is such a rare year where guards do not prevail at the top. Uh, if Francois comes off the board here, the next highest rated guard is Obi at 8. So if we
Mm.
have a team that's guard um, in need of a guard, we might actually see the first like ever reverse reach of leaving centers on the board in order to pick up a guard just because of how, I don't want to say top heavy the draft is, but how tall the top of the draft is. I look up to most
Yes.
of these players anyways, but
Yes, you do. You definitely do. But but yeah, it's certainly the case. This is like I said, this year is very very rare when it comes to the depth of positions here. Usually, a lot of the times we see a lot of guards more so than centers, but here in the top 24, I believe we have like 6 or 7 centers that have made it to the top 24 that are on this board. So
9.
9.
9
Okay.
centers.
Yeah. So I definitely undervalue just a little bit, but there's a large amount of centers to go around. So I would not be surprised if a couple of them drop. We already see one center like get raised much higher than preferably with Brandon being the sixth on the top 24, getting picked all the way up to number 2. So we already could see some centers could possibly get overlooked a little bit more than others.
I'm being told 10 centers. I missed
10.
one. So
Yeah,
half these teams might be walking away with a center this first round.
yes. If that is the case, but that just shows how rich the centers are this year, and that if any team really needs to get a big, this is the year to do it.
Yes, and I think I see the commissioner is ready to take the stage.
For the third pick of the 2023 FBA Draft, the Williamsburg Minutemen have selected Tanya Linwood, a guard forward Red Wolf from DC Community College. Congratulations to you, Tanya, on being the third pick of the 2023 FBA Draft. I'll return for the next pick when the Biloxi Voodoo have confirmed their selection. But before I leave, we have an announcement. There has been a trade between Alaska and Baltimore. Alaska has traded their 5th pick and Mark Genera Jr. to Baltimore for their 18th pick for Baltimore's 2024 first pick, Esmeralda Patterson, and $3 million. Thank you.
Well, we'll have to dive into the what that means for the draft with that kind of trade. But congratulations to Linwood going number 3 overall. I take the win on that call.
Yep. So that's certainly a solid thing, as you said, with the fact that like it's the best of both worlds. In this case, if they decided to if they decided to uh, decided to not go guard here, well, point guard, I should say specifically, and really kind of dive into possibly looking at Michaela Marley. Very interested to see where we're going to put her once Vera Latiera contract is up, and if she decides to return after that year.
Yeah, like I said, it's going to be very interesting to see how the Williamsburg Minutemen kind of make use of the assets they have. They have a lot of players locked in for one more year, and then it's the year after that's kind of into question about what direction they go as a team. And I think the young blood that they bringing in is starting to develop as a possible solid future core. It'll just be, when that moment finally falls for some of these older players, when we won't be calling their name anymore from the Sports Den broadcast booth.
Yeah, 100%. Well, let's go ahead and dive into the voodoo, shall we?
Well, the Voodoo, another team that has so many options that they can make. They are kind of locked in at center and power forward, thanks to Lee Bearquin and that trade they made for Tyrese Vaughn. And I
Mm-hmm.
really love their pick last year of Natalie Davenport. I think she's really stepped up. So I would be shocked if they went point guard here. So I'm going to lean in and say this is where Carter comes off the board.
Yeah, that is certainly a possibility. I believe that Lewenthal is going out to free agency, but they could also go into Francois as well, possibly to look into for the shooting guard position since they don't really have anybody at that spot anymore.
That is true. I mean, I guess it depends on if Francois, you want him to be the shooting guard role or play the point. Because, I mean, thinking about it, Natalie had such a great rookie year for being not a top draft pick comparatively.
Hmm.
A lot of people, I think, were sleeping on Natalie last year. So when she came in and was able to take a team that struggled, but was able to provide a lot of benefits to them. And it'll be interesting to see how much she's able to work for her next contract this last year to see if she can really land the big bucks next year. But yeah, back to Francois. Looking at his, he is a 3-point shooter. I definitely saw him more as a point guard, but he could possibly kind of do a 1-2 duo,
Yeah.
be a ball handler and a 3-point shooter for the Bloxy Voodoo.
Yeah, I mean, considering how well he did in the first combat game, I believe he almost scored 40 that game.
Well, Linwood also almost scored 40. The two of them were just
Yeah,
out of
and that would
control.
yeah, and really, just to be honest, like that would be a very interesting dynamic duo in the guard spot between Natalie and Francois. I think that will be a really interesting combination to really show that young upstart that they really need. Like we already love the fact that their front court is pretty much star-studded with Lee and Tyrese at the fray. So having both Natalie and Francois to be that younger core, to be that 1-2 punch, that could be a really low-key dangerous team that could be a dark horse making the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean the Biloxi Voodoo last year. I mean they have struggled with unexpected departures, and it's been really hard for them, I think, to build a solid team going forward. And let's not forget they're in a division with the Tennessee Moonshiners, who came so close to taking home a championship this year.
Hmm.
I'm not going to say they have an easy road to the playoffs, especially given how tough their division is. But I do think if they make a good pick here and one more free agent signing, I could see them back in the playoff hunt.
Yes, 100%. Now, whether it be Francois or Cardo or even like something a little bit out of the blue, like Angel, we'll have to wait and
I
see.
mean, I think if they pick center here, they're not competing next year. They're competing the year after. I think they're looking
Mm,
to the future if they do that because they brought in Tyrese. They gave up another lottery pick to do so. So they like Tyrese, I feel like. It
yes.
would be Bear Quinn they're looking to replace. And with how big his contract is, I don't see them doing that. Immediately, they're probably going to have to play out his old contract just in terms of how much money's still on the board with them.
Right. Yeah, that is certainly the case there, and like I said, it'd be more of a very surprising move they decided to go over uh to the big first site in this one, considering that they're basically set in the front court. But I do feel like that we might see Francois come off the board here. But Ramsey's also a very solid choice as well.
Well, speaking of, the commissioner is ready to take the stage. Let's jump down live.
For the number 4 pick of the 2023 FBA Draft, the Biloxi Voodoo have selected Obi Violet, a point guard, small forward Corgi, who played basketball in the Africa League and the Federation of International Basketball Association. Congratulations to Obi on being the 4th pick of the 2023 FBA Draft. I will return for the next pick when the Baltimore Spirits have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Well, they did go guard forward, but they combined Francois and Carter and went a little further down to grab Obi.
Yes, so going for the more swing fur option, and it's just like what we talked about with the previous pick. Um, this is going to be one of those where they can fill either one, whether it's the spot from Lowenthal or going for that shooting guard position to pretty much pair up with Natalie.
Yeah, and I mean, we were overlooking him a little bit, but I do want to admit the fact that Obi has that professional experience overseas. There's a little bit of different mentality, I think, that comes with a player coming from overseas that's played professionally than a player coming out of college who, really hasn't had the same kind of demands put on them. They're not having to worry about, making their bills every month comparatively to someone overseas who's making it their career still to play.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something that we always got to keep in mind with some of the players that are in, because overseas players, it's a different type of atmosphere in the Euro leagues. And so having someone who has had the professional experience already, don't have to adjust too much when it comes to the mentality when talking to guys like us in the media and answering those tough questions that could be difficult. And also being able to be a leader early on in the career, because that's also something we have to look into too. Because with Biloxi being more on the younger side, they're going to need that little bit of mentorship throughout the time. So bringing in a guy like Obi Violet could certainly be a good omen to that, of finding a player that is can be a solid mentor as well as being a long term piece for your team.
Right. Now, I want to dive into Baltimore, who traded up, as we heard earlier, to this pick, uh, bringing in, well, they gave up their 18th pick, a future first rounder, Esmeralda, who was their first round draft pick last year. They did bring in Guerrera Jr., who is a power forward center, I believe. So I was going to say I feel like they might pick center here, but now that they've acquired a power forward center, do you think that Carter comes off the board here, or do you think they still stick with that center possibility?
That's a great question because they do have Tia Terra for the next couple of years, but we don't know how long she has really left. I mean, she's still pretty relatively young, so she can still go at it in the long term. But of course, there's still quite a few holes, especially when it comes to the forward position. So I wouldn't be too surprised if Carter does come off the board here, really, because they're already clearly set when it comes to the backcourt with a combination of DuPont and Kelly. Now, DuPont is in her last year of her contract this year, and she was quite expensive with the 22 million left on that said deal. And if she continues to play lights out, she might demand the same amount of money. So it's going to be something that we're going to have to look into when it comes to how the Spirits wants to dive into. Now, the Spirits have been one of the more wild card teams when it comes to picking in the draft, as they have picked some players that were expected to be a little bit lower than when they were picked. So I'm very intrigued at the fact that they're willing to trade up to get to the spot.
Yeah, and speaking of, the commissioner is ready to announce the pick for Baltimore.
For the fifth pick of the 2023 FBA Draft, the Baltimore Spirits have selected Ramsey Carter, a forward Golden Dot Frog from Atwood College. Congratulations to Ramsey on being the number 5 pick of the 2023 FBA Draft. I shall return after the Santa Ana Spectrums have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Well, we were right on the money with this pick, even though now I'm a little concerned about how uh, toxic that locker room might be between Safina, and I meant that in the literal sense, not the figurative sense.
Yeah. Um. Yeah.
And maybe the
It's gonna be
figurative a little
interesting.
bit.
Yeah. I mean, there is a lot of ferocity within that locker room for sure. I mean, they're kind of, I'd say they're used to it, considering that Wendy Brown was also a part of the roster. Now, whether or not she gets back in the roster is another story, but that's a topic for another time. But really solid choice there, as Carter is going to be the easy choice of being the starting small forward for this team.
Unless they make a move in free agency, you would have to imagine Carter coming in, 19 years old, will be the starting small forward, and just absolutely going to be a rock star team that wants to make another push towards the playoffs. Obviously with, like you said, DuPont's contract coming up again, she could command a lot of cap, and if she does, someone's gonna have to pay it. Someone will pay it.
Oh yeah, someone will definitely pay it for sure. She is one of the top guards in this league, no questions asked. So it's something that they're gonna have to look into and possibly get the win here. But it's something that uh, it just really kind of shows that the spirits are willing to try and see if they can make it to the next level within the league this year, as they have made the playoffs last year, but they want to make sure to really make some noise, and I think Carter could certainly do that.
Yeah. Now jumping on over to the Santa Ana Spectrums, who have to feel a little concerned considering they've now had, I believe, 3 teams trade above them.
Yeah.
Oh no, I take it back. Sorry, BOV's trade with for Tyrese was for the 8th pick, but yes, LVG jumped in above them at number 2. We had this trade with Baltimore jumping in above them at number 5. Um, so now what do they do? What has their board have to be tossed out because of all these trades, or do they still have the player that they want there?
Yeah, it's certainly something. I mean, we have. I know that been going through a lot of the interviews as well, and there's certainly some interest that they had for some of the players that are now off the board. And looking back at their team, and they're basically have a clean slate technically when it comes to their starting roster. But you imagine that Angun is going to come back. Kiara Hughes is most likely going to be coming back. But the big questions are going to be the small forward position and the power forward position. They used their amnesty this year to clear up that starting small forward spot. And I don't
No,
really
they didn't.
imagine. Oh, they didn't?
Lee forced a
Oh,
renegotiation.
Lee. Okay, yeah, sorry. Like that mixed up. But with
There were
with
a lot.
with Lee, yeah, with with Lee being gone and Sebastian most likely not looking to come back, I would imagine that they would be looking to bring Peace back, maybe. But I would say that they would be going looking for the forward and big spot. Now with the fact that Baltimore jumped and took Carter, that could be a problem with the fact that like there aren't really a lot of small forwards in the top 24 or even in the draft in general.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at it, they're not. So they have obviously Aquino signed, so he could be a point guard, shooting guard if one they can't bring back Addy or Kiara. Oscar Johansson was brought in. I feel like he could slide into that starting center spot or power forward spot. Um, I was gonna. I'm leaning Angel here. It's either Angel or Francois. I feel bad for Francois starting to slip down the boards a little bit. He was ranked number 2 overall. Obviously, Angel number 3. We've had
Mhm.
a center taken, a center taken, and then it's understandable maybe the fact that the guard hasn't gone off the board yet. I don't feel like any of these teams so far have been super guard needy.
Yeah.
Besides Hawaii, that was like the only team. So I'm leaning center here personally. Maybe power forward. I don't think they'd reach down. Like you said, the next true forward, pure forward, is Hodgson's at 14. So I feel like they might as well just pick one of the 3 centers that are at the top. Angel,
Yeah.
Oakland, or I guess Kiara would be the third best available still.
Yeah, I agree with you on in that regard. I mean, I honestly I think that getting Angel here makes a lot of sense, being the second highest on the draft board that's available right now, and with the fact that like since they have Oscar Johansson to possibly fill in, and they can have truly a pretty young front court if they decide to go that route, and that could be pretty exciting, especially if they bring a lady like Angel into the fray.
Well, speaking of, the commissioner's ready to announce the pick.
For the 6th pick of the 2023 FBA Draft, the Santa Ana Spectrums have selected Kyrie Sabathia, a center Tibetan Mastiff from North Star University. Congratulations to you, Kyrie, on being the 6th pick of the 2023 FBA Draft. We have another trade announcement here between the Bangor Tides and the Pittsburgh Keystones. Pittsburgh has sent their 7th pick and performed a sign-in trade of Ivan Divakovic to the Bangor Tides, who have sent out their 8th pick and done a sign-in trade for Desdemona Iverson. With that, the Bangor Tides are on the clock. Thank you.
Hmm.
Well, we'll have to discuss that trade in a minute, but Kiara being selected here, a little surprising considering both Oakland and Angel were still on the board. Maybe wanted to go with a little, I mean, maybe the Mastiff. They want to do a Mastiff duo down in the post with Oscar and Sabathia. Uh, you know, that could be what they're aiming for here, but center position is what I was kind of leaning towards, and they ended up following through on that.
Yeah, for sure. Though it's very intriguing how like a couple of the there are a couple of centers that have been picked so far, and so far Angel has not been the one to pick up the phone for either of the teams that have selected, and it really kind of goes to show that like not only how rich the center position is, but what kind of style each of these teams are going for as well.
Very much so, and I want to dive into the Bangor Tides now that they made this trade. They gave up Desi. Desi's gone. It sounds like she was planning to leave anyways in free agency and wanted to sign before the draft ended. Get on to Pitt. This way, Pitt knows what they need to get now. Bangor knows what they need to get now. And now the question is that center position because they traded away Tyrese to get this pick. Well, the pick that they just traded to get this pick.
Yes.
So,
Um,
do they take a center here? We've been talking about Angel. We've been talking about Oakland. Is one of their names about to be called, or does the fact that they knew they were losing Desi, who's the next best power forward on the board? It's Nora down in 11. Do they really need to trade up to get Nora at this spot?
mhm. Yeah, and I feel like you have to imagine that it has to be either Angel or Oakland in this case, considering the fact that like it seemed like to me that the Tides were really aiming to kind of make a change up with their front court, especially with Desdemona deciding to move on. With this sign and trade being completed, it it just seems like it makes the most sense to go big here. Which honestly, I imagine Brandon was going to be around at this spot, uh, considering the fact that I would imagine Agent will be gone by this point, and a lot of the people that are up here that are gone now would be gone. So it's certainly going to be one of those situations where the Tides have to go center here. I imagine.
Yeah, I mean that they just had the third best player fall into their lap potentially,
Yeah.
or they could go with the 7-9 Bird. I mean, either or. I don't think they can go wrong here. I have to
Yeah.
go back to Francois, number 2 overall ranked. This is giving 2015 flashbacks. My first, FBA draft where we saw Derek Kim
Hmm.
slide from 1 to 11. It
Yes.
makes no sense for him to go here. I hate to say it, but there's
It doesn't.
no. Maybe if Ash slides over to small forward, but I feel like he's grown really comfortable in that shooting guard spot, playing number 2 in the number 2 slot with McDonald Rainbow taking the lead. So I'm a
Yeah.
little hesitant to say that they would pick a shooting guard here.
I agree with you on that one. Like I said, it feels like McDonald Rainbow and Ash Zen have been a very, very well-oiled machine when it comes to the backcourts uh, within the FBA. And I would be pressed to see that Francois would go ahead and bring them up, going to full-on small ball in this case. So I would imagine that when it comes to how these teams have played so far, I don't think Francois will be able to fit very well, especially considering how well Francois has played as a player. So I do agree with you here that it has to be between one of the bigs and Angel and Oakland. And while Angel is the much higher compared to Oakland, Oakland's got size.
Yeah,
Like being basically a female bird of DQ, there's a lot of things that you can play around with when it comes to Oakland being the pick here. So um, either one could work very well for the Tides.
yep. And speaking of, the commissioner's ready to make that announcement now. Let's jump down to the stage.
For the number 7 pick of the 2023 FBA Draft, The Bengal Tides have selected Angel Kumalo, a center liger from the African Furry Basketball League. Congratulations to you, Angel, on being the number 7 pick of the 2023 FBA Draft. I shall return for the next pick when the Pittsburgh Keystones have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Well. Number 3 off the board at number 7.
Yeah, that's certainly. I'm not surprised about this one. Like they had to go big here, considering the circumstances, with Desdemona as well as trading away Tyrese. They're gonna have to find a way to reset the bigs within this within their roster. So them going for Angel, having the what is considered the top center in the top 24, it's not surprising that she gets picked up here.
I mean, she practically fell in their laps, but I think we're getting joined by Matt Lewis now. Matt Lewis, can you hear me?
Hey guys, can you pick me up?
Yes, we've got you.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts,
Wow.
Matt, after this? The first 7 picks. What do you think?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm back for my, I think, 4th year in a row or something like that. I don't know why you keep bringing me back. I can't pick to save my life. But anyway, I'm just surprised that one of the best performing athletes at this year's FBA Combine is still on the board in Dieudonné Francois. What is going on? I understand the need for forwards and centers. It happens every year. Somebody who's going to be a gift for the future gets overlooked simply because the position doesn't quite fit into the nitty-gritties of the current moment. But the current moment can be changed just like that. I think we're overlooking a strong athlete early on in this draft.
Very true. And I mean, honestly, this might be causing some problems in the back room right now because I think there might be some teams out there that did not expect Francois to be still on the board at this point, and now they're starting to put out feelers to see maybe they can trade up. Maybe the team that does have a need at point guard or shooting guard starts to feel a little tempted to try and reach up and grab him or play gamble,
Hmm.
see if it falls to them. If you're number 11 right now, maybe you hope that he falls a few more slots so you don't have to pay anything extra.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
because
It's a possibility.
I don't see Pittsburgh necessarily needing him, but
No, they don't.
after having given this trade now, especially. So we're looking at a situation that Tallahassee,
I
I
mean,
I
mean,
don't know.
if we look over to Tallahassee right now when it comes to their depth, they do have Aurora Hopkins and well, Cresta could be a possibility decided to move on from because like Renstill will be on her final contract this year, so that could be a possibility that we could see Renstill get swapped over with Francois. So that could possibly be a potential there. Um, and I think the Demons are basically set in the guard position, I believe, as well. And Edmonton has questions. So like if there are two teams that could possibly be looking to get them, it would be between Tallahassee and Edmonton out of the next 4 picks that are available right now.
I'd agree. If Arizona picked Francois, I'd be blown away. Pittsburgh could if they're not feeling super strong behind Blake, but he was their top pick last year. But so let's talk about
Hmm.
Pittsburgh then. What are they going to do here? Their starting lineup really looks like they're missing with Rebecca going. They just got a power forward though to replace Rebecca. So what do they really need right now?
Um, I mean, we could probably look into the small forward position. I mean, Chantel McNaughton is a decent starter, but I don't think she's going to scare you if you're an opposing team. So we could possibly see them look into going young, going for that small forward position. Uh,
I
oh, excuse
agree
me,
with that
as
because
well.
we are in a I agree with that because we are in a situation too where they just traded Ivan away. They have to re-sign Wei Zing. If they, for some reason, were unable to do so, all they would have on the roster is a couple bigs. So I
Well,
think we're looking at that.
looking at that, then the board, the forwards left available: Nora Winchester at swing, um, Hodgins at true forward. And that's pretty much it till Elijah Wolfgang. There's only 3 small forwards kind of left on the board right now, and we're only at the 8th overall pick. So, um,
It's certainly an interesting situation. I mean, going best player available would not be a bad idea here, considering who we're talking about that's the best on the board right now in Francois. But it's gonna be a wait and see because of the fact that um Ulysses is going to be here for a couple of years. It's going to be interesting what they want to do with Blake Evans if they decide to continue his development here, especially with how high they picked him in the previous year. I would imagine that Pittsburgh is going to be an interesting spot if they don't decide to go for need and goes for the best available.
well, speaking of, the draft pick is in. Let's cut down to the stage.
For the number 7 pick, the number 8 pick of the 2023 FBA Draft, the Pittsburgh Keystones have selected Noah Winchester, a shooting guard small forward from Ford University, Southern California. Congratulations to Noah on being the 8th pick of the 2023 FBA Draft. I shall return when the Tallahassee Typhoons have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Well, the forward is off the board, and if you're in the market for a small forward in this draft, you might have to reconsider. With only 2 left in the top 24, we might see some cusp players start going early here tonight.
Oh,
Yeah, this is something that we usually see with the center position at this point, but it's certainly not too surprising here with what Pittsburgh had to deal with.
No, not at all. Matt, your thoughts on the direction they're going here, what this pick says for them?
well, between Blake Evans and Chantal Magnano being in their last year of the contract, it does give them a little bit of insurance to have somebody who could be a flex backup starter, learning behind those two. Of course, Blake is still very new to this league as well and could vouch for some big money in the coming years. So I don't know exactly where between those 2 and 3 spot they would expect Nora to fit in, but Pittsburgh is pretty well suited after this draft, I would say. And really, after trading up, they got a really good, solid player in Nora regardless. That's my opinion.
Yeah, well, talking about Tallahassee now, Ryan, or Marcus, not Ryan, Marcus, I'm Ryan.
You are Ryan.
I'm
You're
Ryan. I
indeed
haven't had
Ryan.
any
I am
drinks
Are
yet.
you?
Marcus.
I promise,
Huh?
people.
Yes, I promise I am not a 5'9" peacock.
I swear to God. Anyways, that's for Halloween. Tallahassee, I know you were talking about you have to take Francois here. I'm going to argue you have to take Oakland here. And the reason why I'm saying that is, can you imagine Rosalia Smoot in Oakland as the post defenders for Tallahassee?
That's a lot of size. It's a lot of size.
Those two can lock down the post. Obviously, Kevin Oakley also going in the free agency this year. They might decide to bring him back and try and keep Smoot. I can't imagine. Uh, that would be what I would do, honestly, because that just intrigues me so much. That image in my mind. Now, I'm not going to say Francois is a bad pick here if they choose to go that route. I'm fixated now on this image.
Well, I think when it comes to this type of decision, it just really all depends on how much they think Renstill is going to be used here within this team long term, if they decide to try and re-sign her. Because Cresta, she has been a long term. She has been a very valuable piece in both the Wildcards and the Howlers, respectively, when she was on those teams. But now we're starting to see the wheels kind of fall off a little bit when it comes to Renstill. Now, it really just depends on whether or not they are still willing to go ahead and run with Cresta as their starting shooting guard, or decide to go ahead and make the best pick in Francois, considering how much he has fallen, and really kind of have that young duo between Hopkins and Francois for the long run.
I agree with that. I think at this point you could move up Carson Good. He's there for a couple years, as he's been there as a bench player coming off the bench. Could move up into the starting five with a good performance coming this season, and that would suitably we would expect then for Francois to come in. I think the best move here finally is to pick Francois as just the best available player on the board. That's what I would do if I were in the Typhoon's office right now.
So boring though. Come on.
I mean, is it boring though? Is it? Because
We had a
Francois,
lot of excitement so
we
far.
expected Francois to be picked in the top 3 at most. So I think that getting a player that has so much talent this late could really do wonders. We've seen the Voyagers be able to just take that and ran with it around the time when Derek Kim got picked around that late in the game. And they were able to do wondrous things as a team for a very long time. They were a playoff contender for a good amount. So I'd say that that's still
Marcus,
pretty exciting.
He just actively yawned at you. Did you see that?
Oh my! Wow, jeez, man,
Look,
that is so rude.
it's
Thanks,
so
Brian.
boring. I want to see the second overall pick or second ranked
So-
overall player go. Okay. Here's
That
the
is
thing.
so mean.
If he doesn't get picked here, we know Arizona's not picking him. If Arizona's not picking him, I do see Edmonton. He's not going to fall much further than that. There's no way he makes it past Edmonton if he's still there at number 11. That won't even
Yeah.
match the worst draft fall in the past decade.
hmm
But I want to see Oakland and Tallahassee.
I understand. I think that like with the amount of size between Smoot and Oakland as the 4 and the 5, that's a nightmare.
Well-
Like even if I was playing, that I would be terrified of that.
Well, I can say now the commissioner is going to either make or break my heart as he takes the stage.
For the 9th pick of the 2023 FBA Draft, Tallahassee Typhoons have selected Dieudonné Baptiste Francois, a Big Fur Black Panther from Chicago Bay. Congratulations to you, Dieudonné, on being the number 9 pick of the 2023 FBA Draft. Shall return for the next pick when the Arizona Demons have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
The No Fun League.
I'm sorry. I'm
The
sorry.
odds have been given.
It's been look. It makes sense. At the end of the day, it makes sense for them to go with Francois here. It really kind of goes to show that they're ready to go for a young duo between those two.
But here's the thing, it's boring now. Arizona, we know who Arizona's going to pick now.
Well, why don't
Hey.
you march on down to the Typhoon's office and tell them how boring they are for picking the number 2 ranked player
Hey.
in this
At
draft
number
class.
9.
It's not and hey, you know what? It's not about trying to make this the most dramatic draft possible. You see best player available, you get best player available. And that's what they did. And I think that that's a great pick for them. I think that'll be a very dangerous backcourt there between Hopkins and Francois, especially with how well that we've seen the offensive prowess of Francois in general. I can't get mad at that pick whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, again, it makes sense. I'm not going to... Okay. Happy face. Smile. Moving on. Arizona on the clock.
Yeah.
Number 10th overall
Arizona.
pick. It's Oakland. It has to be Oakland. They got
It-
rid of Morgan McCarthy. The next center after Oakland is Fazio, down at 15.
Mm-hmm. That's 100% the case. I can't imagine them going for any other player but Oakland here. Oakland is now the best player available in the draft at this moment. There really isn't under really major holes within this team that really needs to get pressed on, because the West is really difficult. Okay, it is the tougher conference in the league. So having a lot of size would not be a bad thing. I mean, we already have DQ wrecking things up over in Winnipeg right now. So I would not be surprised if the Demons would want to match that.
All they have on the roster right now is Jacqueline Turnbull. They need a second center to help her out, and that would be Obendorfer.
Yeah,
Not much else to say.
I mean, that's the thing, is it's not they don't have a lot of roster spots needed. Like,
Yeah.
that's the thing, and maybe they consider they don't like the Chet development after 1 year, so they want to go more of a power forward. But at that point, you're looking all the way down to maybe Fazio. I mean, maybe.
Oh, and then I forgot too about. No, Magni is a forward. All right. Sorry, I'm doing multitasking things.
It's okay. We're all doing that. Trust me. We are all doing that.
Well, speaking of, I think the commissioner is ready to take the stage with the pick. It wasn't a tough decision, perhaps.
Obendorfer.
For the 10th pick of the 2023 FBA Draft, the Arizona Demons have selected Oakland Obendorfer, a center satanic nightjar, great-eared nightjar mix from Pinion State University. Congratulations to you, Oakland, on being the number 10 pick of the 2023 FBA Draft. I shall return for the next pick when the Edmonton Totems... No, pardon me, that's not correct. When the Edmonton has confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Oh, poor commissioner. Been stuck in his ways forever with the team names, and they go up and change them. But
Yeah,
I can finally
it's a mix.
say, O has been drafted.
The double O.
Quadruple O.
Ooh. Oh yeah. Ooh has been drafted. Ooh.
But she'll do great in an immediate plug-in center that I think sets the Demons lineup now. Now they just get to play with whatever money they have left over.
Heck yeah, let's talk about Edmonton.
Oh, I talked too much about Oakland. Okay, fine. Edmonton.
Yeah.
Fine.
Well, I
Okay.
didn't mean it like that.
Fine.
We all know that Obendorfer was going to Arizona. It happened. Congratulations to her.
No, that's a shock. How dare Arizona not reach down to like the 15th best player pre-ranked to get the center?
Really, really boring, Arizona.
Very
Come on,
boring. You're
the
so
program.
boring. Oh my goodness.
Being predictable can be exciting. Anyways, let's jump on into Edmonton. Right. They so they obviously have their shooting guard locked up for the next half decade. They traded for Scooney Barrett. If Oakland was still on the board, I would have said they should have taken her here. But now the kind of draft board is reset. I feel like there's no bad pick once again unless they go outside the top 24. And even then, it might not be a bad pick if they really like the player that they think they believe that they will become someone big.
Yeah. I mean,
do we know what Clark is going to do? Has any announcement been made?
I have not heard anything. The rumors between Alaska and Edmonton, I don't even know if he'll pick tonight. He might pick 3 weeks from now.
Yeah. I considering that Clark is more on the quiet side. Agents don't have to be sweating like crazy trying to make sure that he doesn't say anything crazy. So I'm not surprised that Clark wants to, keep things to his chest of where he wants to go, because that has been the conversation, really, that both Edmonton and Alaska has the rumors have been saying that those two are the teams that have been interested the most. Alaska's interesting, considering that they do have bigs over there already, but maybe they want to go ahead and try and speed things up and go into the playoffs for the first time in a while.
Yeah, I mean, they
I honestly
obviously.
think they could pick up.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ryan.
No, you go ahead, Matt.
Oh, thank you. I'm the guest here, so I do get to go ahead first.
You both are ridiculous.
The man said I can go, so I'm going. And all I was going to say is that we have two really highly ranked guards on the board right now. I think just getting some guard depth would be good for Edmonton here. Disregarding the conversation about whether or not Xavier Clark is going to come back, because I guess there is no information out there that's either being kept internal. If we see something different, it could speak to stuff that we don't know. But for now, I would expect either Fiorella or Kent McDonald to come off the board.
Yeah, it's going to be a question of, are they looking more at the point guard spot or at the shooting guard spot? I feel like Lopez is more of the score focused, whereas Kent's going to be more focused on playing, a team player, point guard kind of role. So I think that's going to be the question. Are they going to add another 3-point threat to go alongside Buckley and Cooper? Or are they going to go with someone who's going to be kind of the Robin to the Batman?
Yeah, that is certainly an interesting case. I mean, can't feel Fiorella could possibly be options at the good, or they can probably go for somebody who is more on the raw side and Dustin Foley, because Dustin has a lot of athleticism and quite a good amount of defense as well. As perimeter defense is probably something that they haven't really done too well with within these past couple of years within the Excavators. So Dustin could be a possible option too, with him being the third best guard as well.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough to say. And I think the commissioner is taking the stage now with the selection in hand.
For the 11th pick of the 2023 FBA Draft, the Edmonton Excavators have selected Fiorella Lopez, a point guard main wolf from Lake Erie Anthro Institute. Congratulations to you, Fiorella, on being the number 11th pick of the 2023 FBA Draft. I shall return for the next pick when Oregon has confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Well. We have just one player left. If Oregon selects Kent, the top 13 players will have gone by the 13th pick. That might be the first time in history that there has not been a deep reach. So come on,
Yeah.
Well, now you
Oregon.
jinxed it.
I know. Oh, I jinxed it on purpose. You don't
Yeah,
understand me yet.
he wants that Cassius curse to happen right now so badly. So badly.
You're like the sleuth of the FBA analyst team.
It's okay now that Marcus has called it out. He has now counter cursed my caster's curse by calling attention
Oh.
to it.
This is starting to get a little bit nerdy, guys. I thought we were sports analysts.
I mean,
we look at data sheets all day.
That is true. We do that quite a bit.
Anyways,
Oh, man.
Lopez makes great sense. She's going to be an excellent addition to that 3-point threat of the Excavators. Talk about a shooting duo. We have a shooting trio now. They could just all stand from beyond the arc and just put threes up for days, and the defense is going to struggle.
Yeah, for sure. There's certainly a lot of interesting here with the offensive prowess for the Excavators. It looks like they're going to try and shoot over 100 points a game with the amount of offense that's going to be around the perimeter.
Yeah, well, diving into Oregon now, because a team that has had a really good year after their move, a great move, great fan base already establishing themselves up in Oregon, and honestly, they have the luxury of pretty much keeping the same starting lineup and getting this 12th overall pick. They have the option to go pretty much anywhere as a backup. But
Yeah,
Marcus Knight is getting old, so I do believe Kent McDonald would not be a bad selection here, honestly.
Yeah, I can understand feeling the need of it being time because um back when they were in Texas, Marcus Knight has been the heart and soul for this team. But now that they have gone to a brand new place, it's a fresh new start for the Swashbucklers, especially with how well they did in their very first year being a playoff team. I think now it's time for them to possibly look into really kind of leveling up this roster into new heights, and Kent could possibly be the option to do so.
Yeah, your thoughts, Matt?
Well, the Swashbucklers obviously now enter year 2 of their experience in Oregon. And for the most part, I think they, like we've been talking, they've had a really great year. They had a good turnaround. This has been a good move lucratively for the organization so far. We have questions, I guess, from my point of view on who they look to the future as, the faces of their franchise. And a lot of players are ending their contracts after this season. So it's going to be pretty safe for now with whoever they pick. I don't think they're going to go very far down the list to find somebody. But it could be one of those opportune moments where you don't feel the need to bring up somebody um, just because they were ranked on a list at a certain position. They could go further down and grab a forward or a center that they want to develop. They have a little bit of freedom here, and that freedom comes with a big decision. It could be a little bit more uh, interesting than we've been seeing the last few picks here.
I mean, you're not wrong. There's so many options they could go with. Obviously, the fact that 4 of their starters are on last year of their contract, you have to imagine that they might want some insurance, just just in case, just in case.
Absolutely.
Well, I do see the pick is in hand. Let's head down to the stage and see what the commissioner has.
For the 12th pick of the 2023 FBA Draft, the Oregon Swashbucklers have selected Kent McDonald, point guard cheetah from West Feline Technical University. Congratulations to you, Kent, on being the 12th pick of the 2023 FBA Draft. I will return for the next pick when the San Jose Thrust have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
See, Marcus successfully counter-cursed my curse.
See, look at that. So for the
Oh,
first
no.
time, with through 13 picks, the top 13 of the top 24 were selected. So we are essentially gone through just about everybody. So now that we are halfway through, we're not going to look at mostly the bottom half. There's no player that's going to be like, they've dropped mighty far. But now it's going to be interesting to see who could possibly jump ahead. Because I imagine there's going to be a little bit of shenanigans here to see who's going to be the best players in each of these draft boards.
I mean, I feel bad for the draft boards. Most of the time, you expect at least one player to
Bad?
slip. I
You
do.
feel bad.
I do. There's at least usually some hope, some drama of a team thinking of trading up because they see a player they want falling. They just see it happening right before their eyes, like in slow
Oh,
motion.
man.
But right now, they're like, crap, we're at number 16 and the best player available is ranked 13.
Or the opposite situation, which is all the analysts who put together this list for reference so that the rest of the world wouldn't be confused come draft night, did the best job they've ever done by getting the first 12 exactly correct.
Well, they didn't get it correct order. Let's be fair.
Yeah, I mean,
No, I don't. Fairness is out of the window here.
No,
Nope.
yeah. I would say that they got the top players when it comes to overall talent than position. Now, position of needs and things of that nature that comes into play as well. But when it comes to like overall talent and overall expectations, then the top 12 made sense in that regard. But whether or not that'll continue here on the second half, starting with San Jose, it's going to be a different story, especially with San Jose. Their biggest thing is possibly looking looking at the big, since Adam Kate is
Yeah.
going to be in free agency.
Or
Yeah,
they
I
could be
would agree
looking to
with
replace Adam finally.
Oh goodness gracious! I swear that man has a target on his back just about every day. Anyway,
Well, you have to be certain to mention which Adam to replace, because there's Kote and there's Tevola, but I'm assuming you meant Tevola.
Both.
So
Both of them could be gone at any point.
that is true. That is true.
Well,
they need to pick up a center. That's my opinion.
okay. And okay, so we have 4 centers in the next 5 possible picks. Basically, you have
Yeah.
Mauro Alvera, Tejon, Dunez, Zhao Jing, and Felicia Kataguri. And then even further down, Curtis McCartney, who had a great combine game. So, which of the centers stands out, I guess? Do you go based on, like, the highest ranked, or do you think there's someone that stands out that may have been a little lower ranked here?
I mean, like I said, it really depends on like what kind of style they really want to go with here. I think Alvaro Tejon would be very interesting considering that he has a lot of grit to his game. So far, I think like between who has the biggest grit, it'd be between him and Brandon, considering like how their play styles within the paint, and really just the amount of defensive effort there for Foley as well. But it does kind of counter what the kind of style they're going in San Jose with how Tavella and Damian Myers play. But it's something to really kind of get to see if they decide to go big in this instance.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to provide about the details of whether McCartney has done enough, because again, I'm just still really shocked how far Francois fell after the combine results.
Okay, he got picked. It's fine. He got picked. He's a top 10 pick. He's okay. He will be fine in Tallahassee.
Marcus,
Let it go.
Marcus, are you okay?
I am okay. I am doing fantastic.
Okay.
I have rocked the boat one too many times for Marcus, and I apologize profusely.
You are good, my dude.
I thought I was going to be the
Oh,
one who
wow.
snapped after all my ranting earlier, but no, it's Marcus here.
Hey, I'm just saying, like, I think no matter where they go, they should be very happy to be where they're at right now. And that could be the case here in whatever with San Jose does, whether it's going to be the best player available, which is Foley in this case, or if they decide to go big here and go for the Moroa Fazio.
I think Faswo or Fazio.
Fazio.
Apologies for the pronunciation.
Look, we'll get used to it. We'll get used to it.
Alrighty, I think the pick is in. Let's jump down.
For the 13th pick of the 2023 FBA Draft, the San Jose Thrust have selected Moroa Fasuo, a center power forward aardvark from Tamale Senior High. Congratulations to Moroa on being the number 13th pick of the 2023 FBA Draft. I shall return after Winnipeg has confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Well, they went big as you all predicted.
Look at us being so smart.
I'm sorry. I'm just like crying because I never get it right.
Aw.
Oh, God.
It's
Okay.
okay. It's the first time for everything, Matt. I'm happy for you.
I thought I was supposed to be the drunk, crazy one. I've got Thierry
He's
McGee.
He's not drunk or anything. He's just emotional. Ain't that right, Matt?
Oh, I'll get over this. I promise.
Well,
Congratulations, San Jose.
either way, congratulations going number 13 overall. Let's jump into Winnipeg, who my perfect script that Marcus is going to get angry about. I wanted him to fall here.
Lord.
Could you imagine?
Why? Why would you want
History.
him to fall here?
History.
Okay, but
Okay, I dropped it.
13th?
Winnipeg does potentially need a center due to DQ's age, or if they can afford to keep Martineau, if they can't afford to keep Martineau, they could have replaced him with a Francois. But
Oh my God.
the
All
next
right.
best guard available is Dustin Foley, at 13 ranked. So
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
would say that they go with the center here, but we've seen crazy stuff happen with Winnipeg in past drafts. Um,
yes.
and historically, they don't necessarily go for best available. They go with a player that fits their form, and it paid off for them in 2 years ago when they went to the finals. So I'm going to say that even though DQ's age is a factor in the idea here that getting a big is of the time, I could see them actually just waiting for free agency to make some moves and find somebody in there instead of picking somebody from the draft. They tend to um, surprise us with who they go with. So we'll see.
It's I'm kind of mixed on this one, mainly because that while yes, Dustin Foley is the best player available, he's one of the more athletic focused guards within this draft class. So they wouldn't really get the same amount of offensive prowess that they would get from Martineau if he were to decide to move on in free agency. Now, of course, there's also the debate of not only DQ but Kevin Malka as well, as he is up there in age too. Oh, yes, he is younger than DQ. He's not like a spring chicken, as you would like to say. So I wouldn't be surprised if they decide to go big here with Tejon really being my the eye to look out for if they decide to go move on from either Malka or Daniel Kubianic or completely reset their front court entirely in the next couple of years.
well, you're bringing up the age of Kevin, but we can't forget Carbonu.
That true.
2011
That
draftee.
too.
So uh, uh, the Winnipeg's back front court, sorry, is living dangerously close to the retirement home. Um, you got a 2012 draftee in DQ. You got 2011 in Eves, 2014 in Malka. He still has, I'd say another easily 3 good years in him before I start being
Hmm.
concerned, assuming injuries don't start sneaking in. But for DQ and Eves, it is a year-to-year question now.
Yeah. Especially with how much money that they demand this year too, with uh DQ with 17 million and Eve with 15 and a half. So those two players in particular are going to be people that are going to be ones to look out for, since you can imagine the Voyagers window to get another title is probably probably close to being shut much sooner than people would realize.
Yeah, and I mean, I think between going for a center here, I think that would make sense. I could also see Hodgson's coming off the board just because that kind of addresses the small forward position. Maybe I'm not super confident that she would fit the kind of play style that Eves brings, which might be why we could possibly, as Matt has said, see a reach here into the even onto the cusp. You know, because I feel like they need to find someone that they're going to eventually replace either DQ or Eves with, which would either be a center from this round or maybe Wolfgang. He's the only forward guard I see really on the board still.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I'm still really stuck on Marcus's spring chicken comment. I'm still trying to decipher
I'm
what he
sorry.
means by that and what the chickens viewing out there
Okay,
feel about that.
it's a figure of speech, Matt. It's okay.
Should we
We
bring
don't
Poitier on?
we don't speak this language out in California. I don't know what you're talking about, man.
Hey, this it's a figure of speech. I don't have to explain it. You just take it as you will. Um,
I will take it as I will, I suppose.
um,
And you're gonna get canceled, Marcus. Sorry.
Oh man.
is that the first time? Um, anyways, in any case, I think that like when it comes to Winnipeg can really kind of go anywhere, considering that they're looking to possibly look to be a younger player. I do like the pick of Tejon mainly because not only with the fact that there's a good chance that this could be DQ's final year, not just like on the Voyagers, but maybe his his last year here in the within the FBA, considering his age, but also because of the fact that like Dustin could probably get some very good mentorship from both DQ and Kevin in the long run. Because maybe even being under somebody for just 1 year can make a huge difference in someone's ability as a player,
Oh
and it
yeah,
can
absolutely.
yeah, and it can really be a good thing for a player for the Winnipeg to be able to utilize that, considering that their players are all mature and have won that title and have that experience to walk those players through that once they step into this league.
Well,
They
speaking of, the pick is ready. Let's jump down to the stage.
jump.
For the 14th pick of the 2023 FBA Draft, Winnipeg has selected Creed Atwood, a guard border collie from UFLA. Congratulations to you, Creed, on being the 14th pick of the 2023 FBA Draft. I shall return for the next pick when Tennessee has confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Ooh boy, okay, going guard. Possibly the one area they really didn't need to go unless they are concerned about bringing back Francois.
Well, that is kind of a big concern. I can understand, considering that when you look at how much money that they have left in the uh with their cap space, they only have 13 available that's going to be used for free agency, as 4.5 of the million that's going to be used is going to be for these draft picks that are being selected right now. So considering that Francois is still considered possibly a top 10 guard, I think everyone could probably agree that he's a top 10 shooting guard within the FBA right now still. It's people are going to ask a lot of money from him, and it's going to be very difficult to probably match any of the contracts that could be offered for Martineau. So I would say that like with that in consideration, trying to get some kind of insurance policy would be huge if they're not able to get them at a reasonable deal for both ends.
I said we would be surprised, and lo and behold, this was a little bit of a surprise for the reasons Marcus just shared. And for what I have to contribute to the conversation is, basically, we've seen this before, but not necessarily in the situation with Francois Martineau, um, because I don't really see him wanting to search for another team for a home or going to you playing the money game with another team. Um, and now he's got this new guy who's going to be training with him on the court. So it's going to be really interesting to see what Creed Atwood brings to the Winnipeg Voyagers. But at the same time, I'm also wondering what it means for the future of their starting five too.
Yeah, you have to imagine. I could, like I said, foresee Marnu coming back on a bit of a team-friendly deal, but like I said, the contracts are just so tight for this team to be competitive going into this season. They're gonna have to play some wizardry, some magic, some I don't want to say illegal accounting, but the accounting is going to have to be very careful with their finances if they want to be
Mhm.
competitive. Now, jumping on over to Tennessee, the team that finished second, so close to taking home a championship, what do they need to bring in to compete again this year?
Uh, well, I think the biggest thing that we have to look into when it comes to Tennessee has been their depth. That's really been one of the big things that brought them into the big dance in the first place. Now, of course, we also got to give huge credit to Arthur Selby being their best player on the team, as well as the experience of Michael River being able to get them over the hump in a lot of the upsets that we saw throughout their run to the FBA finals. Now, going into who there are in free agency right now, they do have Weber in free agency, and I would imagine they would like to bring him back. But again, they don't have a lot of money either. It's 17 million. So it could be a battle for Weber that they might not be able to um duke it out with. They do have Bivens as well coming off the bench that could elevate to be the starting small forward. So it might not be that big of a need. So I would imagine they would try to enrich that overall bench depth.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think they have a really solid starting lineup, even with the contract year being over, coming up for a couple of their players with Yellow Weber, and we still don't really know what the status long term is going to be for Lady Black and a couple other players. But I would say where they need some help immediately is filling that bench with players that can come off, fill in for those roles, and do exceedingly well. This is the time, the draft is the time to find the player that does that best for you. And considering who they have kind of already locked up beyond their top 5 positions, I don't think they need to search for a guard here. They may look for a forward, um, but really just anyone that you can find who would be able to come off the bench and be a solid 6 or 7 spot is where I think Tennessee would do best in this pick here.
Yeah, and keep in mind they don't even have to technically bring back Weber because Lady Black can take over at point guard and Aldridge can slide in at shooting guard and have the reigning MVP Selby take over that small forward position. And maybe they want to keep him in, that primary second role that second shooting guard role that got him that MVP, but I don't feel like they necessarily have to bring back Weber. I do agree at this point in the draft, these are the teams that were in the considered contenders. So unless they have massive
Mhm.
holes, they are building depth right now and building for future potential starters, development players. So
Mm-hmm.
I could see Hodgkins going here. I could also see maybe trying to add a little bit more depth. I feel like they struggled at the center position at times. Maybe a little bit more depth just in case to avoid injuries. So, but I do think the
Yeah.
commissioner is ready. So let's jump down to the stage.
All right.
For the 15th pick of the 2023 FBA Draft, the Tennessee has selected Marina Hodgson, power forward Great White Shark from Gold Coast Sharks. Congratulations to Marina on being the 15th pick of the 2023 FBA Draft. We'll return for the next pick when the Bangor Tides have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
We were who they thought we were.
Oh my God. Well, again, no reach. We've made it all the way down here to the 15th pick, and not a single cusp or non-top 24 player has been selected. Again, not a bad selection, but I do think this brings into question whether or not Weber will be a player they are looking at bringing back. Because as you said, they picked last year Bivens. So
Mm-hmm.
do they really need to bring him back now that they brought in Hodgins?
Maybe
That
this is
is
a way for
certain.
them to stir up some competition.
True.
That is true. I mean, like I said, the thing that brought the Moonshiners back has been the bench doing very, very well for them. And we did see that come into play within the finals themselves too. So I wouldn't be entirely surprised that that they want to continue to utilize these young, hungry players to continue developing them and becoming key pieces to possibly make another run. Because remember, the Moonshiners finished with the seventh best record in the East, and being able to overcome a lot of the top heavy players with the depth that they've had really comes into play of how well uh these certain teams really kind of picks from if they want to go ahead and follow that same mindset that the Moonshiners had.
Except they're not underdogs this year. Everyone's going to have their eyes
Mm.
on them. They have the
Oh
biggest
yeah, for
target on their
sure.
back now.
Mm-hmm. It's just like it doesn't matter what kind of record that they have, but they're gonna go ahead and bring on all cylinders no matter what, just to
Oh
make
yeah.
sure that they go ahead and do what they need to do to get past the Shiners.
Yeah. Well, Matt, now we have once again back to the Bangor Tides, and they just drafted Angel, but the rest of their team literally they need
Hmm.
every position besides point guard and maybe shooting guard. So, who gets a free start here at the 16th overall pick?
Well, you take into account, again, you mentioning Ash Van Zant is the face of that franchise at the current moment. They've got a couple other guys on the roster, but they're basically an open slate. And they just traded for Ivan Divakovic, who is a forward. So, and they drafted a center. So they're starting to assemble a series of players at all of the positions. I think we go back to what we just said about Tennessee Moonshiners, and that now we start focusing on who will come off the bench and be the best supporting actors in this role, because they could go to free agency and get a lot of solid players for everything here too. So for the I guess 16th pick here, I would go the best available with Dustin Foley. I could also see them arguing that they need somebody to verify that Ivan Divakovic was worth getting, and bringing in Duenas to Bangor.
Yeah, I mean, I did. Keith was where I was starting to look mostly, uh, just in case they decide to put Ivan at the small forward. Uh, I
Mm.
think Dustin would be a great selection as well because again, Ash can slide over to small forward if he needs to, and Dustin could start as a shooting guard or just come off the bench as the sixth for and have a chance to kind of develop as the rest of the team gets built and starts to click. Um,
Yeah.
there's a lot with how open they are. Literally any player right now is a fine pick.
Yeah, 100%. And going back into Dustin, as I alluded to earlier, in the draft when discussing about him, is the possibility of him possibly being a good spark coming off the bench, really being able, because he is a very energetic raccoon. Like I think we can all agree that he is certainly one of the more like pumping up in your face type of attitude player. And I think the Tides are looking into that as well. And I wouldn't be too surprised if they decide to go for Dustin here because of that case.
Yeah, it would have to be somebody who has a good camaraderie with that kind of energy. So you're not looking necessarily at um, the reserved player individual, or someone who wants to be their own leader, take things into their own paws. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know who that necessarily would be, but I still think they can fill it with fill this pick, which is their second pick in the first round, um, with anybody who fits those types of personalities, or maybe you just go with best available and hope it works out. I don't know.
Well, I think the pick is in, so let's jump down and see what the commissioner has to say.
For the 16th pick of the 2023 FBA Draft, Bengal Tides have selected Felicia Category, a big fur-maned wolf from Claiborne University. Congratulations to you, Felicia, on being number 16th pick of the 2023 FBA Draft. I shall return to the next pick when the Albany Alphas have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Well. They went with the athletic center to guide power forward center combo to balance out Angel's strength.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, just before I have to go, because they are saying that my time is coming to an end soon here on the program.
Oh,
But for the matter of speaking, yeah, I don't know about this pick. It's gonna be a competition now, of sorts, between Angel and Felicia, and I don't know if that's necessarily what they wanted to create here, but it's what they're going with. Now, you could definitely slot in Felicia at the 4 position, and they did need to fill that role. Um, but yeah, it's an interesting pick to also reach down past a couple other available players and bring her in.
Well, there is the possibility of the fact that, like, considering that this is kind of a bit of a reset here for the Tides, that they do want to make sure to give a good amount of depth within the bigs. Because while it's not ideal to have the same position that you just drafted get picked again, I don't think that's necessarily a terrible situation here because there's a lot of ways that you can play around with the depth. They both end up doing very, very well. that could be your front court for the next 4 to 5 years if things go well between the two of them. And the fact that they both can probably motivate each other as they practice and get accustomed with how they counter with one another.
Yeah, and thank you, Matt, for joining us. I'm gonna let you get on out of here. Uh, been a great year, and we'll see you back again
Yeah,
next year for
thank you
year number
so
5.
much. Yeah, and hope if I get at least one pick right next year, then I've done my due diligence. I've earned my pay for the next season after that. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. You have a good one, dude.
Well, and I'm gonna kind of play off of what you were mentioning. I like the fact that they went with someone who is dynamically different than Angel. They didn't go with the strong big. They went with someone who is a fast big. So you can have the ability of Angel playing anchor and then category floating around, being able to come in and help, but also slide out to defend players on the switch a little bit easier. So I can see the intrigue of not just going two bigs that are the same play style, but having a mismatch of a strong anchor and a flexible defender.
Yeah. I think that when it comes down to it, I think having that balance between the two, right? Because like having big, strong furs that are like 8 feet tall and 350 pounds is a big thing. It can be really huge for a team, but taking all that size, you're going to lose a lot of speed. So the most elusive guards that your opponents could have could utilize that and get easy buckets if they have you exposed out in the perimeter. So getting someone who can counter that and help out in that regard with that athleticism could be a good way to counter. Like I said, it's all about trying to find the good balance and the good mesh to really kind of give not only your team a lot of flexibility of who you want to have at that starting role, but also having opportunity to be able to utilize the strengths and weaknesses between two players.
Yeah, and jumping on over to the alphas now. 2 years ago came close to winning in the finals. Now looking to make it back again after a year of not being there. You know, Pratt and Watterson, two key figures in free agency. This is a team that kind of feels like they're building depth right now. So what do you do here?
This is probably where I'm gonna keep repeating myself with best available, but I think that when it comes to the players that aren't necessarily big, because they have quite a good amount of money within there, and they could easily bring back both Pratt and Watterson, depending on how much money is offered to them at this moment. But we also got to look into possibly the concern of Viren Kivar, because Kivar is not getting any younger either. So it could be a possibility where we see Dunya's come off the board here if they do have that concern. Kivar does have a couple of years left, so they could be at risk of possibly having to choose between Dunya's and Kivar. But also, if they're worried that Watterson might not come back, they could probably go Alvaro as well. I don't necessarily think they have to worry about guards too much. They have quite a bit that are still under contract that are guards, if I recall correctly. Um, so Dustin may fall a little bit more here, I imagine. But if I were to pick what player that they would go for next, it would most likely be Dunez, in my opinion.
Well, that pick is in. Let's see if you're right. Let's jump down to the commissioner.
For the 17th pick of the 2023 FBA Draft, the Albany Alphas have selected Keith Duenas, a forward center Devil's Hole pupfish from Ruby Valley College. Congratulations to you, Keith, on being the 17th pick of the 2022 FBA Draft. I shall return once the Alaska Arctics have confirmed their selection. Thank you.
See, there's a reason why I try my best not to guess or assume what certain players are picked anymore this year, because like I know a lot of people got mad at me for getting like 7 or 8 in a row.
Yeah, well, whatever. Anyways, like I said, it makes sense. It seems more like an insurance pick in case Watterson does leave. They have someone there that they can bring in,
Hmm.
and if not, it just adds good depth because right now they don't
Yeah.
have another center besides Ruley coming off the bench. So having a second center that can be available in case of injury, or if Kiefer has any injury issues, they can always sub in one of them there. So it makes
Yeah.
sense why they went with the Big Fur here. Uh, so not much time going to spend on them. Let's jump on over to Alaska, who started the night by trading way, way back. They had a very high pick at number
Hmm.
5, and they felt confident enough to slide all the way back here. What are they doing with this pick?
I mean, considering the rumors that are having right now, I don't think Big Fur is on the table for them, especially with the fact that since they are targeting Clark, they already have a couple of other Big Furs in Conley as well as Devin Dukes, who they picked first overall last year. I don't think Tejone's going to be picked up from here, but they do have a need at shooting guard. Now, considering the fact that there were still quite a bit of guards at the 5 spot, it makes it a little bit of questionable of why they traded back so far because of that. But if they decide to go ahead and go guard here, I could imagine Dustin Foley or Noraline Collins if they decided that they don't really feel like having a more of a raw player to try and help develop as the years goes on for that shooting guard spot.
Yeah, with like I said, Sierra being gone now, I feel like a guard has to go. I feel like Dustin, this is where he falls off the board finally. Um, I'm looking at the draft. I don't Collins. Yeah, like I said, the guard. If you have the number 13 guard sitting there, I don't see you going down to the one that was ranked 20th overall or the 24th overall. I don't see grabbing a center or like Wolfgang maybe considering he can play the swing for position.
Yeah.
Um,
It
I'm gonna say Foley has to be the one to go here.
it just depends because like while Foley is the more athletic and definitely more gifted, he as I said, he is a raw player. He's not really known to be that offensive savvy. While for Collins, Collins is known to be very well on the perimeter, especially, and it has a pretty good time of passing too. So if they decide to say, you know what, we'll go ahead and put a young Fur on the point guard position and kind of move Qatar in the shooting guard, that could be also a possibility. It just gives it's just kind of the mindset of who do you think would be more of a fit for Alaska in this case? And considering that Foley, well, yes, can definitely be a spark and really kind of get a team going, it would be pretty interesting. I don't know if they're going to like trust that he could possibly be that answer that early on in his career.
It's a lot of pressure to put on a rookie, and I think the pick is in. Let's go down to the commissioner.
For the 18th pick of the 2023 FBA Draft, Alaska Arctics have selected Dustin Foley, shooting guard raccoon from North Star and University. Congratulations to Dustin on being the number 18 pick of the 2023 FBA Draft. We'll return to the next pick once Plymouth has selected their pick. Thank you.
Well, we were right. Dustin coming off the board. That is the 13th ranked player gone. Now we are down to the final. Got to do my math real quick. 6 top 24 players that could be
Yep,
picked here.
and there still hasn't been a single on the cusp or out of the top 24 picked as of yet right now. So we're still on pace of possibly having all of the top 24 players get picked for the first time what's probably in forever. There hasn't really been a time where we haven't seen a player outside the top 24 get selected in the first round. So I'm curious to see how things go as we travel on to the next pick.
Yeah, there's always one person who, really shines with during their interview, during the combine, during, some kind of private drills training event with the team that, you know, bewixes the team to draft them as with the first round pick. It's just so rare for every top 24 ranked player to seem to be the best players in the team's minds as well. Usually there's some disagreement. And I think part of that has been the need of center has often overweighed the the rankings at times. So
Hmm.
this year having so many centers has really helped avoid teams feeling like they need to reach.
That is true. uh, Especially with the case when we get into the Plymouth Taproot. Speaking of bigs, um, we might see one come off the board here, considering the fact that uh, obviously Maroon is also in free agency, but I did hear that they gave an offer to him, so I imagine that he'll be back. But the rest of the starting five, they're on their last year of their conference, most notably Jake Turner. So, with that being the case, do you feel like that they are willing to spend that much money on Turner again? Or do you think that they'll go ahead and decide to move on and go for another big to fill in those massive, massive paws that Jake Turner had filled for the past few years that the Taproots have been within the league?
Oh, there's no doubt they're going center. I mean, they could prove me wrong here, but looking at what they have on their team, they have no one under contract besides Store as a backup center.
Yeah.
Sorry, Belmare. She is the starting power forward right now. I don't think we're going to see her demoted to the bench level, but I feel like between the two of them being on their last year of their deal, you're going to have to start considering some depth at the center position just in case. I don't feel like either of them are going to feel threatened by the player that they select here, but it
Hmm.
will give them better depth. I feel like they're going to bring back Tori. Small forward, it's kind of questionable. I feel like that there's no one here, I think, jumping out off the top of my head that's like, okay, this player's going to be a starter because you got
Yeah.
Wolfgang and then you have to go into the cusp. So I feel like they're going to target a free agent there. Their starting lineup, I feel, besides that small forward question. Sorry, I lied. Feckle has one more year. I thought she was on. I thought she was a
No,
free
no,
agent too.
she's not. She's not.
Okay,
She's
then
in the
yeah,
last year.
forget it. They're not. I
It's
don't
fine.
feel like they're going to go forward here. Unless they've like really liked one of them as a depth filler.
Mhm. Yep.
Um,
I imagine Tahone's going to be coming off the board in this juncture. If not Tahone, then Zhao Xing, which Zhao Xing is an interesting pick in my opinion, mainly because of the fact that like he is more of a stretch five. Compared to the rest of the bigs, he's not your standard big that we're used to seeing within the league. So that could be of interest, especially since they already have a stretch five in Jake Turner, anyways. If they wanted to groom somebody and be able to fill that, Zhao Xing could be the best option. But I think with best available and Tahone there being such a defensive juggernaut as well, I think Tahone is probably the pick to be had here.
yeah, I mean they could go guard. I guess just looking at the depth on their team, it's a little rough. Um, in the sense that they don't bring back Tory, they're in a little trouble. But I feel like there's just always so many guards available in free agency
Mm-hmm.
that unless you really like the player, there's not a lot of reason to take a point guard here, in my opinion. I'm not going to say that they would be a bad selection doing so, but I do think with how deep the center draft has been, they're being gifted the opportunity to start considering an heir to Turner or even just depth. And speaking of,
Yeah.
pick is in. Let's switch on down to the stage.
For the 19th pick of the 2023 FBA Draft, Plymouth has selected Alvaro Tejon, a Central European Badger from University of Strathslikesdale, Scotland. Congratulations to you, Alvaro, on being the number 19 pick of the 2023 FBA Draft. I will return for the next pick when Huntsville has confirmed their selection. Thank you.
And again, not surprised here. 19th overall, they got the 16th best player in the draft, and it's a center. It's been so difficult in the past for teams. If this was last year, the 16th ranked player being a center would probably be a top 10 pick.
Yes.
So
We've seen that a lot. So it's not too surprising to see Tejon coming off here off the board. It's with a lot of the teams that are coming up right now have had some questions about what they want to do next for their bigs. So for Plymouth, it makes the most sense to go for a big here. I imagine that like this is going to be kind of one of those decisions of whether or not they want to keep Jake Turner um on the team, especially with how much demand that he has when it comes to money. So it's going to be one of those tough decisions that they're going to have to make.
yeah, and just to clarify, in case anyone missed my joke, last year's 16th ranked player was Devin Dukes, who went number 1 overall. So um,
Yes.
that
That
that is just the range of lack of center depth can cause people to go to in order to get the one they want in this draft. So I think Plymouth is very happy to walk away at this spot with what they got.
and not having to have everybody go, "What?"
Well, let's jump on over to Huntsville and consider, what they're going to be doing going forward. They had a bit of a rebuild, obviously, the past couple years. Their
Mhm.
two big free agents right now are Buckner and CC. So I kind of feel the same way that, they're going to have to go in that forward position. Whether or not they go a big fur like that's the problem is if we go big fur, you're starting to have to dive into the top 20, outside the top 24 because we have a center left in Zhao Jing and Curtis, and then we got some guards and a swing fur. Our
Yeah.
dream of a all top 24 going in round one is becoming more difficult as these teams might need to draft by need.
Yeah, and that's especially the case for a lot of since a lot of these teams that are at this position, uh, they've all made it to the playoffs. They all have a core that has been set. Because if I recall correctly, Huntsville was had the was ranked number 2 in the West by the end of the season. So
East.
East, sorry. By the end of the season. So this is something that I feel like that with the fact that Buckner could probably be the question mark of whether or not he'll return. I think they really want to bring CC back. How much money that's going to be is going to be the question because they
Hmm.
only have around 20 available, which, is not the worst amount of money to have left on your available for free agency, but it's not something that you'd want to like spend all willy-nilly. It's going to be one of those situations of how much are they willing to spend to keep CC around. And I would imagine that if there's anybody in the starting five that's going to go, it would be more so Buckner than CC since he is the older player. Now, for a replacement for Buckner, it will most likely be Wolfgang if they wanted to stay within the top 24. But there are a couple of pure forwards on the cusp that are notable as well, which whether it be Jennifer Kellogg, Jesse Maddox, or uh
Vontae.
Vontae, sorry. Yeah, Vontae.
Yep. The cusp is starting to become a little bit tantalizing to dip their paws into, and even then, there's a couple of big furs in the not top 24 that they could go after, such as Dreamheart. Uh, you know, uh, Even going into more of a swing for role with Devin, Jasper, or Nikolai, and it there are more options if we expand past the top 24. It's just at this point the money that you're paying the players is the same as if you had drafted them at number 9, but the level of talent isn't always the same, which is why I think a
Yeah.
lot of teams love those top second round picks because they're getting players that usually slipped out of the top 24 for cheap.
Mm-hmm.
But now the question is, okay, who do you take with these picks where the return on value may not be as good?
Yeah. I agree with you on that regard because it's going to be one of those difficulties when being in that position, especially for a team that usually doesn't have a lot of holes to fill at this point in the draft. Now, for Huntsville, it's a little bit of a different story because, as I've alluded to, two of their starting five players are in free agency, and they may have to choose between the two. And I would imagine Cece's going to be the choice here, which kind of leaves you left of trying to fill in that small forward position, whether it's trying to rely on a fur that could possibly be the next one up to fill that spot, which I guess in this case would be possibly Tamika
Hmm.
in this case, or Harmony Akayu deciding to go ahead and take that starting role and be with her brother in that starting five. Or they can just go ahead and rely on possibly either Wolfgang or some of the other players that are not on the top 24, but on the cusp as well. So there's a lot of options that they can do here. But whether or not they decide to try and enrich their depth, which I think was kind of their big problem, because they were the first team to go up against Tennessee during their run, and that was a big issue going into that matchup.
Yeah, and I mean Okayu, she started I think in Alaska for a while alongside her brother. I feel like she's definitely been more effective coming off the bench as the sixth fur. Uh, but they have an option there. They don't have to go with a player that they're not as happy with. You know, she's a very serviceable starter. She's just not as much of an impact player as I think they would want at that position. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, to kind of go alongside Fash, you know, Snyman is a good player. I think he's definitely developing a lot more as a pass first point guard, and they need people to assist with getting open and getting the scores, which is what Fash is great at and what Buckner was pretty good at. But as he's aged, he's starting to lose a step or two. So
Yeah.
Akayu doesn't necessarily have that same, I think, explosiveness on offense. But it's tough, I think, at this point because again, they're
Yes.
building depth.
Yeah. And that's just really what the big thing happening at the end of the day. I do think that if they decide to go small forward, which I imagine to be the case, I think Wolfgang will be the choice here in that regard. They do if they do need to go for other positions that may be of need, possibly going over to the bigs, which again goes alludes to Zhao Xing. They don't really have any players that you can say that wows you in the front court when it comes to coming off the bench.
Yeah, and I think the pick is in. Let's see what the commissioner has to say.
For the 20th pick of the 2023 FBA Draft, Huntsville has selected Noraline Collins, a guard Tanuki from Japan. Congratulations to you, Noraline, on being number 20 pick of the 2023 FBA Draft. Shall return once Lorraine has confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Well, they went guard, which is a little surprising, but I guess they're going for depth building here at the moment. Maybe they're happy with what they have currently or their targets in free agency. So they're not really looking at the draft as future starter material, but more future contributor depth building kind of role.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting one here because they do have a couple of guards still on the roster, I believe. Well, I think there's only a couple on the contract, and I think that's Maria, and I think actually, yeah, Maria's the only one that's on there, so this is actually might be a more pressing need. But yeah, I think that going for Collins is not too big of a deal because while Snyman and Fash is obviously the starting duo for years to come, they don't they as I've said before the pick was made, their depth has been the concern. That's the reason why they were not able to beat Tennessee in the playoffs. That's why they lost by 5. Well, in 5, I should say. So trying to enrich that bench is going to be very important for them, and that pretty much leaves the door open for Travis Buckner to come back, hopefully on a reasonable deal.
Yep, and now she joins, her brother in the league, actually playing in the same division.
Mm-hmm.
But jumping on over to Lorraine now, who had a barn burner of a season last year, and it is going to cost them because Tyreek Kendricks renegotiated. Their rookie Teresa's was coming off contract, and Edwin Griga was coming off contract. So now they, I think, have to pay if they want to play with the roster that they managed to get so far with last year.
Well, there is a blessing in disguise in that as well, because I believe they have the most amount of money in free agency to spend. Over 60 million available for them to play around with. So while they do have to use a good chunk of that to bring back some of their players to possibly have that roster that I believe they were tied um for the top record in the entire FBA, but they had the best record in the East. So to continue to stay onto that, they are going to have to pay a pretty penny, and I imagine that a lot of suitors are going in for Grega and Tyreek, and Coyote, respectively.
Yeah, I mean, last year was essentially an audition for all of them to um, come into this free agency with the ability to command plenty of salary. And Lorraine did finish actually in first in the East. And like I said, yeah, tied between the other three, Montana, Las Vegas, and Dakota. So they have a lot to defend in the East
Yes.
right now. So you have to feel like maybe they take a safety pick or just go for depth here.
Um. Honestly, I wouldn't be too surprised if they go Zhao Zing. Um. Like I said, I do imagine that they really want to bring back Tyreek in this instance. But outside of Tyreek, there aren't real like. Of course, they have Mason retired, if I recall correctly,
Yes.
and they have Martin for a couple of years, but he isn't really known to be a starter caliber a player, or a really huge depth piece, I should say. So I think that going Zhao Xing could probably be a really good pick here to probably continue having that big fur duo that could cause some problems during the regular season and continue that process. So I think Zhao Xing could probably be the pick if they are really looking to aim to possibly get the to continue being one of the top teams in this league.
Makes sense. And the pick is in. Let's see what the commissioner has to say here.
For the 21st pick of the 2023 FBA Draft, Lorraine has selected Xiaoxing Kwahiti, center Okapi Zebra Mix from Thunder Bay Predatorial College. Congratulations to Xiaoxing on being the 21st pick of the 2023 FBA Draft. I shall return for the next pick when Dakota has confirmed their selection. Thank you.
Well, Marcus, right again. But now I like this as a safety pick, in my opinion. But not only building depth, but preparing in case one of the two does leave.
Yes. And with that, we're gonna go ahead and dive on into Dakota. Dakota's in a very interesting situation here, considering Bloyer is going into is in free agency right now, and there are a couple of other players that are on their final years of the contract, more specifically Dylan Redfield and Benjamin Derby. They'll be most likely gone after this upcoming year.
Yeah, and with the only other center left in the top 24 is Curtis McCartney. So you have to wonder, is that uh, an area they're going to go to, or do they explore other options in terms of depth? Because I mean, they only have one open spot for free agency with the current number of draft picks, so they
Yeah.
can, I want to say, explore some depth elsewhere. Because really, they're only going to be targeting one person.
Yes.
Um,
It's
so it's an interesting situation they find themselves in.
honestly, I probably would go for the swing here because with the fact that Curtis McCartney is the only big, well, yes, he had a really good combine uh last week. I will admit that he will have a solid one, so it wouldn't be that bad of a choice to have him as possibly the future big to possibly be the next the next skater up to probably replace Derby if they decide to move on from him. But it's also the concern of whether or not Jonathan Lawyer does come back, because there is another suitor out there who is willing to break the bank, and that is Hawaii. From what I've heard, anyways, rumors and all that. um, and so if with that rumor going around, that could be a possibility of him possibly moving on. So Elijah Wolfgang could be the best of both worlds. Could be the future of being that emergency fill-in spot in case Lawyer decides to move on, or could possibly be a person that you develop and get ready to take in the small forward position if Dylan Redfield decides to not come back to the Bikers.
Yeah, it's a tough decision to make for the Bikers here, especially considering they are heading into a questionable rebuilding stage if they do not um, win a championship soon. As you said, Derby might be heading out in the next couple years. Redfield, you have to wonder, this is his fourth or fifth team. He's been
Mm-hmm.
passed around a little bit ever since leaving Dakota. And now you have Lawyer potentially. We'll have to see if he comes back. If he does not come back, you have to feel like their contending ability immediately is reduced. So it's kind of boom or bust on Lawyer. So at this point, you're just filling in what you need to support them. I feel like right now they have enough center depth between Xavier and Eli.
Yeah.
They don't, and Hugo. They have three centers on their bench, so they don't necessarily have to go that way. I agree that a forward, maybe we're gonna see our first on the cusp player picked here, just as a pure forward, just in
Yeah.
case to add a little bit more depth there. And I think the pick is in, so let's jump down to the stage. I think the elephant got lost on the way to the stage, so we'll just keep going until we
Yeah.
hear the stomping coming.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Hopefully he's doing all right, but he's on the way, guys. So we'll just go ahead and keep on trucking, I suppose. uh, but okay, I guess like just going into Dakota and what and their window right now. How long do you think that this window, if they do decide to bring Lawyer back, do you feel like there's only a few years left until it officially closed?
Well, instead of answering that really difficult question, I see the commissioner is on stage
Oh.
now, so I'm going to expertly avoid that and jump down live.
Okay, you little bugger.
Terribly sorry for the delay. For the number 22 pick of the 2023 FBA Draft, Dakota has selected Elijah Wolfgang. a forward guard Wolverine from North Star University. Congratulations to you, Elijah, on being the 22nd pick of the 2023 FBA Draft. Shall return for the next pick when Las Vegas has confirmed their selection. Thank you.
All right, we got a Wolfgang in Dakota. Let's go.
But yes, I mean, like I said, it makes a little bit of sense. You look at the players that are leaving this year. They have a guard in free agency, a guard in free agency, uh, and then a forward. So to draft a guard forward kind of covers a lot of their bases. And with
hmm
their last two picks in the second round, they can kind of just fill the rest of the needs and potentially focus on Lawyer and bringing him back. Uh, Now, as I continue to avoid that question, let's jump on into
Yeah.
LVG, who, had a pick already. They had a very high pick. It's been a very long time since they've been on the clock. They picked Baylor.
Yes. Oh God, is it my turn to pretty much go through the tough question?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I would have to say that considering the fact that Brandon was a little bit of a surprise pick, I'm not gonna lie. Um, Considering that they also have Nicolay they have to worry about returning back. Um, I guess I can understand if they're not really too high on Ivy Robbins to return. So it makes sense that they would want to go for him there, but it's really surprising for them to go pick him over the other to be the first big off the board. I would say is a little bit surprising. But looking into what they have left, they still have a small forward spot that does need to be filled. Now, of course, there aren't really a lot of options now that Wolfgang is out. This is probably where we're going to see our first top 24 player that is going to be out of the that is going to be picked in the first round, I should say. I think that could be the possibility, especially with Kellogg, Maddox, and uh Vontae to possibly be the options if they do want to go that route. But it really just depends on how much they're going to rely on trying to use the draft to get the starting position that they need, or if they want to go ahead and try and get some death pieces because they have a lot of players out of contract as well coming off the bench.
You know what? I'm doing it. I'm being crazy. They're going to throw Nikolai to the Wolves. They're going to take Curtis McCartney here and just say screw
Mm.
it. We're getting our draftees from the uh the draft, even though I agree actually. I don't think they're going to do that. I think we are going to have our first on the cusp. I feel like they have to kind of in terms of depth go forward. I feel like their guard depth is fine. They have Helen and Bo who can play guard slash small
hmm
forward. You have Mary Catherine O'Hara playing guard. That kind of breaks the dream of all top 24 going because I don't see Connor Parks necessarily being needed here. I feel like the depth is more necessary. So I think Maddox, Kellogg, or uh, Avante make the most sense to me. Maybe we see them reach for a center in the terms of looking at pure depth down the road.
Yeah.
Uh, But uh, that would be the only way to save the dream of 24-24 would be if they say, hey, we just want depth at this point, even though half our roster is unsigned.
Yeah, it's certainly the case. I think like the biggest need is the small forward, which only can be filled by on the cusp. And with the money they have plenty of they do have plenty of cap, mind you. They have 42 overall. Even though a lot of picks, they got a lot of picks this year. So
Yeah,
it's going to be a very young team regardless. So a lot of those spots could be filled by the young furs, but I would imagine that they will have to use a lot of their big monies to fill in that small forward spot. So them possibly going into the top 24 like a player wouldn't be the end of the world, which could mean that Connor Parks does come off the board because I don't think they want to go make one happy bear to one upsetty bear if they decided to go for Curtis McCartney. But we'll have to just see how things go.
well, I mean, the baby Baylor could slide over Marcus to power forward.
I mean, we'll have to wait and see, but I don't. And I see you kind of like tripped up a little bit there, thinking that that's me. I know.
Well, I
I
was gonna
probably.
say the baby bear, Marcus, and then your name slipped in first. I swear to God,
No, it's
I'm gonna
okay.
jump out this booth.
No, you don't have to fly away from me. I'm just teasing.
Well, it's been a long night. And it's been a long night for the draftees too. I'm sure it's probably very tough for those who have been selected because they want to go out and party. But the decorum of sticking around is a little bit there. You don't want to have everyone leave and then just have one family left behind, uh,
Yeah,
waiting.
that'd be awkward.
The one player, the agent, just staring at the clock, saying, "Please pick us, please pick us."
Yeah, I mean it's certainly one of those situations where like being here being in an empty green room is not the most ideal situation, obviously, but like even then, like when your name finally gets called, that things get a lot more easier to kind of handle and deal with, and be able to be like, all right, cool. You think that 22 other players are better than me? It's time to prove you wrong in this instance. And being able to match up with another rookie can be an interesting situation as well. Being able to grow together and really kind of pump each other up could be a huge thing as well. So it's something to really kind of keep in mind as we go ahead and get into these picks.
Speaking of, the commissioner has a bicycle with him, but also has a pick.
For the 23rd pick of the 2023 FBA Draft, Las Vegas Wildcards have selected Melody Parker Smith, a guard beagle from Cape Cod University. Congratulations to you, Melody, on being the 23rd pick of the 2023 FBA Draft. So we return for the final pick. Montana has confirmed their selection. Thank you.
I'm very disappointed in LVG, and I know I'm going to get some flack from you. They had an opportunity to draft the tallest player at number
Hmm.
2 with Oakland and the smallest player here at 23. Missed opportunities for that
Oh
photo shoot,
goodness.
man.
Oh my god, you're just so silly. Um, but yeah, so that's our first on the cusp player off the board here in Vegas with Melody Parker Smith getting picked here. So we will have one player in the top 24 that will unfortunately will be falling into the second round, but it's just going to be depending on what Montana decides to do with this pick.
Yeah, and it has. I feel bad for the players out there, the people out there who make it a drinking game. I hope none of you have been playing the take a shot every time a non-top 24 is picked, because you've had a very boring night. Please take your first shot.
Yeah,
But
you can do it now.
looking at the last team, the team that won the championship last year, the team that came out on top, led the West, Montana. Another team that's having to pay a pretty penny now, probably due to the number of bench players they have coming up. You
Yeah.
don't really think about it too often, as we always talk about, the starters commanding more cap salary, but it's also the bench players. When they win a ring, they start wanting more money.
Yeah, you can certainly see that with players like Andy Roth coming up, going into free agency. That's going to be a big name that could possibly want to get an opportunity to be a starter somewhere. There's also Barnaby Dunbar, who has been a solid center for them coming off the bench as well. So there are quite a few players that they're going to have to look into to possibly maybe having to replace. And I am leaning more towards McCartney, not because the fact that with Montana also having bigs that are going to be most likely going to be moving on from Montana to possibly look for better opportunities, but also because the fact that McCartney himself had a pretty good combine. I mean, I remember saying his name a lot during the two combine games.
Yeah, I mean, I like Curtis here just because I feel like the team needs depth. Crosby's getting older. He put up a great year last year, and I think he's going to have another good one this year. But the question is the year after. Right now, they
Yeah.
only have Blackburn signed as a backup center, and I'm sure they can probably find one or two in the free agent market. But Curtis is, the young blood bringing it in. They've locked down the guard. It's a depth pick at this point if they want to go guard,
Yeah.
because they have Gunderson, Cross. They Rendall even. I think Rendall. They've kind of floated back and forth between him being a starting shooting guard and being uh, with Cross being the starting shooting guard. So there's no bad pick here, even if they want to go non-top 24. I think the player that's going to this team, as long as they're coming in knowing that they are not going to be a starter day one and they're here to learn and grow, it'll be a good opportunity for them.
I mean, hey, being in that position is not that bad either, because you're going on a team that just came off of an experience of winning a championship. They have that under their belt, and they are going to be willing to teach you to be able to, if they want to go ahead and try and continue to be one of the top teams in the league, to have that kind of mindset of a championship mentality. And that's kind of what the expectation here needs to be. So I would imagine that they would be willing to go ahead and jump onto that, whether it be Curtis McCartney or Connor Parks, or if they decide to go for an on the cusp player.
Well, I do see the commissioner with the envelope. The last pick of the first round is heading to the stage now, so let's jump on in and see what we have.
For the last pick of the first round of the 2023 FBA Draft, Montana has selected Avery Kelly, a guard stickadier from North Carolina Wolfpack. Congratulations to you, Avery, on being the 24th pick of the 2023 FBA Draft. I would also like to say thank you all for attending this evening. Please join us again tomorrow, where we will continue with round 2 of the FBA Draft. I personally will not be here, but I hope that you will all give you the presenters the same respect and goodwill that you've provided to me all these years that I've been able to do this. And don't worry, if you haven't been picked yet, there's still plenty of time left. Have a great evening, and we'll see you all again very soon.
Yeah, well, we're going to have a chance to wrap up our discussion, then we'll head off as well. Avery, not a surprising pick on the cusp player. We talked about the guard, not necessarily being a bad selection here. A little
Mm-hmm.
surprising they went outside the top 24, considering they had Parks there, but same time, this is very much like the FCA first four in, first four out situation, where really the cusp players, you can argue any of them could have been a top 24 if things had just fallen a little bit more their way.
Yeah, that certainly is the case. I mean, especially when it comes to late in these rounds here with the top 24 analysis and the things of that nature, it can be interchangeable for some of the players that are available. And even though they're players that were a part of the top 24 that expected to be one of the names called tonight, there's still plenty of opportunities, as it was said, for them to get picked up in the second round, especially early on, because now they have two players in the top 24 that they could look into and be excited to possibly pick up and have. Now, I do think that when we look into that, that's going to be something that is interesting to pick up as we head into round number 2 tomorrow.
Yep, and it's been great, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. We will be back tomorrow at noon for round 2. Any final words, anyone, before we shut down?
Nope, nothing really. I gotta say that it's night number 1 has been just as exciting. I'm expected to be around number 2 to be maybe some wild shenanigans happened, maybe not, but I'm really interested to see what's going to happen here as we look into round number 2 tomorrow.
Have a good night, everyone. We will see you later.